of woman, a strange kind of woman, the kind that gets written down in history. Her name was Nancy, her face was nothing fancy. She left a trail of happiness and misery. I loved her, everybody loved her. She loved everyone and gave a good return. I tried to take her, I even tried to break her. She said I ain't for taking, won't you ever learn? I want you, I need you, I gotta be near you. I spent my money as I took my turn. I want you, I need you, I gotta be near you. Ooh, I got a strange kind of woman.
Hello, Mr. Paice. May I call you Ian?
Ian, of course you can.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Yeah,
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you. So, take a seat.
It's the glamour. It's
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Please take
Yeah,
a seat.
thank you. Okay, I will take this here. So, just a few questions because we don't have enough time, but enough is good. So, the first question we wanted first of all, we will have a small description of who we are. We are a web radio, university web radio, and we are all volunteers. We are all passionate about music, so we're here for this reason. So, first of all, what do you think about rock and roll? Do you think that rock and roll is dead, or what do you think about rock genre?
Every 10 years or so, people think rock and roll is dying. What it does, it just gets a little unhealthy, and then it gets healthy again. And since it began in the 50s, people have said rock and roll will not last. Well, 60 years later, we're still here. And until something else comes along, which will be better than rock and roll will continue to have these little waves of success and waves of quiet. At the moment, it's a wave of success. Unfortunately, the success tends to be for the classic bands, which is very tough on the young kids today, some of whom are making great rock and roll music. But the radio stations and TV have no interest in promoting this music. They would rather show 24 people dancing to some piece of rubbish, and they think that's music. And unfortunately, they're brainwashing a whole generation of kids into thinking that that's music too. So I do feel for the young kids trying to make musical statements today. It's much more difficult for them than it was for us. And I wish them all the luck in the world.
Thank you. So, is there any band you like in of the modern rock bands or other bands? I don't know.
Well, the trouble with most modern rock bands is they don't stay around long enough. They're there for a year, they're there for 2 years, and then they go and do something else. It's very, very hard to actually make a critique on a band if it's not there long enough to make at least 2 or 3 albums. And to get 2 or 3 albums from a record company now, unless the first one is a massive hit, is very difficult. So you do tend to get bands come along, they have one hit, and the next one's not so good, and you never hear from them again. So I don't hear much at the moment that I think is exciting. There is a young band starting in England, but I'm not going to jeopardize them by saying the name, but they're very much like Free and Bad Company. They have a great rock and roll blues feel, and with any luck, they may have a chance to turn a few kids on. But if I start saying their name and it doesn't happen, I may have done something bad for them. But there is light. There is light. Some kids are actually getting through and achieving some good music, but it's very difficult.
Okay, so you have lived all changes in Deep Purple band. Do you feel like being a little bit of the father of Deep Purple, and how do you feel about all these changes?
I suppose not the father so much. I tend to be the voice of reason in the band, and probably because I've been there from the very first day. People do tend to listen to me. They won't always do what I think which is right, but at least they listen, you know. It's a weird thing. When you do changes in a band, it's not because you want to. these things just sort of happen through difference in personalities, difference in musical tastes, idiocy, you know. But sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you've changed something, and as soon as you've changed it, you know you shouldn't have done it, but it's too late. It's like pointing a gun at somebody, pulling the trigger and saying, I wish I hadn't done that. It's too late. So you do things, sometimes you regret them, sometimes you don't. But a band is a very, very fragile thing. You have 4 or 5 people who rely on each other all the time. And it just takes a little crack in the wall to make this little problem seem like great big problems. And sometimes the band will break up over the stupidest little things. But at that moment in time, they seem to be big things. And you look back a year later and you think, what were we doing? You know. But it's too late. But you get on with life and you do the best you can.
Okay. So the very last question, just a curiosity, because there is a urban legend saying that Bonzo from Led Zeppelin, during a concert, a Deep Purple's concert, went away in the backstage yelling at Blackmore. Is it true?
Oh, quite possibly. John used to yell at quite a lot of people. There were 2 John Bonhams. There was the nice, sober John Bonham, and then there was the John Bonham who had a couple of drinks too many. And that John Bonham could never remember what he'd done in the morning when he was the other John Bonham. I mean, John used to silly things. I mean, but he was when he was straight, he was a very nice guy. I mean, he used to have a bodyguard go with him everywhere. When he was drunk, he'd try and hit the bodyguard. No chance, you know. Bodyguard just pick him up and put him away. So, John enjoyed himself in the evening, sometimes a little too much. So if he shouted at Richie, he may have been shouting words of love. I don't know.
Okay. So thank you so much for your attention. It was a real pleasure to meet you and to interview you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.